Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Schwartz with the Harris County Public Library, and I'm so happy to welcome you to Spring Break Week here at HCPL. We have a whole week of fun programs planned for you, so be sure to visit hcpl.net/virtual programs for dates and times. Today, we are so delighted to be here with the team at Harris County Precinct 1's Environmental Education Program, and they're here to bring us animal superpowers. Your hosts today are Miss Anna Ida Cherry and Miss Haley Martinez. As you watch the program today and have questions, please think about them. We'll have time for them after the program. Well, I'm now going to go ahead and turn it over to Miss Anna and Miss Haley. I hope you enjoy the show, and remember to tune in all this week.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. I'm one of the 4 naturalists that works for the Harris County and doing programs for you. If you cannot come to us, we'll come to you, virtual or in person when we don't have the situation we have right now. But what is a naturalist? A naturalist is somebody that actually studies nature. And not only studies nature, it brings nature's to programs to you. Now, we have 2 sites. We have one that's in this one that we are right now. It's the Alexander Dawson Park Learning Center. And that's north of I-10. And then we have one that's south of I-10. That's going to be the Challenger 7 Memorial Park Learning Center. So those are the 2 sites we have in the precinct. Now, today we're going to be talking about superpowers, right? So what if you have a magnetic sense? What if you had used chemical weapon? What if you had an exoskeleton for protection or have night vision? You'll be considered a superhero, right? Or maybe a supervillain. But that's what animals have. We're talking about animals, and that's what they have for their own superpower. We call those adaptations, okay? So what is an adaptation? Adaptation is something an animal does or have that lets it survive where it lives. They're superpowers. An adaptation can be either physical, they're born with, or they can be behavioral. It's something that they learn, or they actually do it by instinct. For example, like you look at my hand, right? I have an opposable thumb. Okay, that's physical. I'm born with one. But if I pick up a pencil for the first time, because I can do that because I have an opposable thumb, can I start writing? No, right? I actually have to learn. So that's what it is. One of them is when an animal does, or humans do, is actually learn with it. And sometimes we just do it by instinct. So if you get hurt and you start hurting, you cut yourself, something, you're just going to try to move your hand away, and that's an instinct you have to protection. And so that's the same thing with animals, okay? And that's what we're going to be talking about. What are some of the adaptations that they have that makes them look to us as a superhero? So, and now, for our first animal, here's Miss Haley.
Hi guys, I'm Miss Haley, and the first animal that I'm going to be talking about today is this lizard right here. This is a bearded dragon. Bearded dragons are called bearded dragons because you see that they have this flap of skin down here that they can actually inflate, and it turns very dark whenever they feel threatened or whenever they're trying to impress a female. So they will inflate this beard and start bobbing their heads, and it turns really dark and it looks like a man's beard. And this beard actually has another purpose. Whenever it does get darker, it can help them thermoregulate their body temperature because they are cold-blooded animals. So they need to heat up when they're cold and cool down when they're too hot. And they can do this by changing the color in that beard. And scientists have actually studied thermoregulation in color-changing animals, and they've actually started to develop some heat-sensitive bandages that will actually turn colors whenever there's an infection or inflammation in the wound. So that is something that has helped scientists in the medical field. And this type of lizard is found in the desert areas of Australia. So this isn't a lizard that you're going to find around here naturally. They do live in Australia, and you can see that they have these spikes on their body. And these spikes are to make them look unappetizing and kind of dangerous to animals that might want to eat them. But the spikes are actually kind of soft. You can touch them without getting poked, but they can kind of inflate their body whenever a predator is coming at them, and it makes them look not yummy at all. So since they do live in desert areas where they don't get a lot of water, Water isn't readily available for them to drink necessarily. So they get a lot of their water from their diet, the things that they eat. They are omnivores. So they eat different kinds of plant material. They eat fruits and vegetables, and they also eat insects and spiders. And another cool trick that they can do is whenever it does rain in their habitat, they will lay on a rock or a log kind of at an angle. And whenever it starts raining, they have a little canal that goes down the backs of their bodies, and the rainwater will drain down their backs and collect into this sort of trough here on the side of their mouths. So they'll sit there with their mouths open and collect that rainwater to drink whenever it is raining. Another really interesting thing that they have, one of their superpowers, is they have a third eye. So right on the back of their head, they have a very small scale called the parietal eye. And that eye actually does have a lens and everything. It can't pick up images per se, but it does pick up shade and light. So if there were a bird maybe swooping overhead, they would be able to see the shadow with that third eye without even having to look up. And they would know that they need to run and find some safety. Now, if you see here on the side of his head, that hole there, that is actually its ear. So they don't have an outer ear like we do, but they do have the middle ear, and then they have an inner ear, and it also is covered by a scale. So that scale in there is going to help protect them from getting things in their ear like sand in the habitats where they live. All right, guys, I will turn it over to Miss Anna for the next animal.
Okay. Now, what I have here with me is going to be an emperor scorpion. Now, they're pretty cool because they have some really chemical weapons, right? And that's going to be part of their superpowers. But they also have, they use their senses. Just like we do, they use their senses. Their senses is a little bit different. If you look it up right here, I don't know if you can tell, but they have little hairs on it and over their bodies. And that in there is actually for them to actually feel things vibration around. So they're very tactile. That means they can feel things around. And that's how they actually protect themselves. Because all those adaptations we're talking about, and Ms. Haley just talked about, it's all about survival. Okay. So this one in here, what they have is they have a chemical weapon, right? Their chemical weapon is going to be that stinger. Can you see it right there? Okay. And that stinger in there actually has a venom. Venom is, we use it interchangeable with poison, but they're actually two different things. Venom is something that you actually gets injected, goes inside your skin. Poison is something that touches your skin in the outside, or you eat or drink. Both of them can hurt you. Both of them can kill you. And both of them you can just have a little bit of a reaction. But that's what it is. So they have a venom. Their venom actually has two purposes. The first one is actually to go and get their prey, right? They actually are a carnivore. So by that definition, they are predators. Now, it also can be for evading predators or even other scorpions, right? So what they do is they use their venom in there for those two purposes. Now, what else do? They actually have what we call slow down their bodies, metabolism. Like we have to eat every day, right? Multiple times a day. They can go months without eating anything. So that's pretty cool for them, right? So they don't have to go hunt for their food every day. They don't have like we do, like supermarkets where you can just go get your food, right? So that's pretty good for the animals to be able to actually go a long period of time with like actually eating anything. Something else that they have too that's pretty cool is that they actually can, let me put it down right here so you can see a little bit better, okay? And what they can do is they can get super cool their bodies, and they can survive when it's freezing out there, outdoors. So they won't die for being frozen. They actually can slow down their metabolism and be able to do that. Something else that's really cool about them too is that they can actually go, if they fall into a pot of water, they can go, in there, and they can actually stay there submerged total no air whatsoever, and they can stay alive for 1 to 2 days. Pretty cool, right? Now, what is really that's the most fascinating thing for me about them is that they have what we call special vision. Like for me, when I'm looking at things, I actually have what we call a visible spectrum, so I can see the colors I see. Some animals can see in the ultraviolets, and some of them can see into the uh, ultrareds, right? So the infrareds. These guys in here are actually going to be into the ultraviolets, okay? And so that's how we see a little bit different. So let me see what I'm show if I can show it to you, what I'm talking about. I'm going to actually shine a light to it. And that light in there is actually a black light. And you can see it in the screen right now, okay? And what it does is that scorpion actually fluoresces, okay? And that's what you're seeing. So it's just normal. The color, it doesn't change the color. The colors is always there. I just don't see in the light frequency. What just popped in the screen right now, it's actually the exoskeleton, which is the next thing I'm going to be talking about it. So pretty cool, right? So if you go camping, go any place that has scorpion at night, that's a pretty cool thing to have. You have one of these. And that's actually how they actually find each other, because they see in their wavelength that I cannot see at all. Okay? Now, what is an exoskeleton? That's what you're seeing right there. They actually, it's an armor in the outside. Okay? And what they do is they use that for protection. When they do, they have their invertebrates, so they have no backbone inside. So they use that for protection. And if you look it up, you can see it. It's just like, like it's a pretty hard, right? And that's because they don't have any bones. They use that. They have those pinchers. Now, what's really cool is that they will molt. Okay. What do I mean by that is for them to be able to grow, they have to come out of the old exoskeleton. That's this one. They're growing another one inside. And so for them to grow, they actually molt and come out of that one. Okay. Now the molting process is going to take about 12 hours. Why? Because it's very soft when they just molt. This gas has to get hard. And for you to do that, it actually depends on the temperature that's around as well as the light. It needs light, like we just see it outside, like it's going to need the light to be able to do that. Okay. Now, so that in there is the ultraviolet superpowers that they have. Now, the next thing that they have, which is really cool, is actually their eggs. Okay, they lay eggs, but not only they lay their eggs, they actually, after the eggs hatch, they go into the mother's back, as you see. You see the different color that they are, the little babies? Okay, so those ones in there are the ones that haven't got hardened yet, their exoskeleton. As soon as so this is less than 12 hours, right? Since they were hatched. So after they actually get into there and then get, after 12 hours, then it's going to be exactly the same color as the mother. Now they go back and forth. So they go out, they come back in until eventually they grow big enough, and that's when they say goodbye, and then they just move along. So now, just because you saw me holding a scorpion doesn't mean it's okay for you to pick it up anything that you see out there, any scorpions, because again, they're all venomous. Every single one of them. It depends, what kind of poison it is. Venom is going to maybe perhaps hurt you. So be careful. And now let's go to the next animal with Miss Haley.
All right, guys. Next, I'm going to be talking to you about one of my favorite snakes, the ball python. A ball python is a type of snake that is found in Africa. So again, this is not a snake that you would naturally find around here, although there are some invasive populations in Florida and other places. They get released as pets, but this is not a native snake that you would see around this part of South Texas. Now, being a snake, they move a little differently than other animals, right? So they don't have any arms or legs, but they have over 200 ribs along their body, and they have very muscular bodies that help them move. So different types of snakes move in different types of ways, but a lot of times you see the slithery movements. And scientists have also studied the movements of snakes and built robots that can actually help them whenever they go to find rescue people after an earthquake or a building collapse. They can actually take these robots that are shaped like snakes and that move like snakes, and they can fit into tight cracks and crevices and be able to find people, hopefully, that they can rescue. Now, these particular types of snakes were also called royal pythons, and that is because it's said that Cleopatra used to wear them as jewelry back in the day. And you can see why, because they just hang on. So you don't really have to do a whole lot of holding, they hold on to you. So a lot of the Egyptians and kings back then would just wear them as jewelry. Now, they are called ball pythons because most of the time they're just going to be curled up in a ball, especially if they feel threatened. They'll tuck their heads down inside their bodies and curl up in a ball, and you can even roll them because they curl up so tight. Now, this type of snake is actually a very good mother. A lot of snakes will lay eggs. Most of them lay eggs. Some have sort of a live birth, but this is a type of snake that lays eggs. And she is actually going to stay with her eggs. So she will sit on her eggs, wrap around her nest, and the only time that she's going to leave is if she needs water. And that's going to be very rarely for her. She will guard her eggs with her life. And then once the babies hatch, then they're on their own after that. Now, snakes, you remember my bearded dragon that I showed you had the little hole in the side of its head where its ears are. But if you see that my snake has no holes. There are no holes, no external ears that you can see whatsoever. But snakes can actually still hear by feeling vibrations. So they can feel vibrations in the ground and even in the air to a certain extent. So how they do that is with the bones in their jaw. They actually pick up those vibrations, and that helps them hear what's going on around them. So you might be able to yell at a snake and it might not hear you, but you can stomp on the ground and it will be able to hear you. Now, speaking of jaws, this is a type of snake that is a constrictor. So it's just going to wrap around its prey until the prey passes out. It's going to cut off the blood circulation to the brain, and it doesn't use any venom. So this is a non-venomous snake. So how they eat their food, they have very special jaws. They have a little bone at the back of their jaw, and they can actually open their mouths wide like this. So we open our mouths like this, but snakes can open in the back and then open up. And then they also have a stretchy ligament right in the middle of their lower jaw that's kind of like a rubber band. And so their mouths can also open this way. And that's how they're able to fit larger things into their mouths. Now, if you can see, she is sticking her tongue out, sniffing you guys. That is because snakes use their tongues to smell. So you can see that she also has a forked tongue, and that is going to help her actually determine which direction a smell is coming from. So then she'll stick her tongue out, pick up that scent, and pull it back in her mouth, and it rubs against the Jacobson's organ at the top of their throat, and that sends a signal to their brain telling them what they're smelling. Now, another really cool thing about this snake is its extra sense, its superpower. If you see these little pits on the side of her face, these little holes, you can see it in the picture really well. Those are called heat sensing pits. So this snake can actually see in the dark. So what these pits do is they actually can sense whenever there's a prey nearby. They can pick up on the heat of that animal. So let's say that it's a mouse that they're pursuing in the dark. Since they're nocturnal animals, they come out at night. So they can pick up the heat of that mouse, and they would see what looks like a thermal vision, kind of like night vision goggles. And that's kind of the basis for night vision goggles, is how these snakes are able to pick up the heat, and they can strike at the hottest part. So the red part of that mouse, that's where they would strike to get their meal for the night. All right, then I will turn it back over to Miss Anna.
Now, what I have now, the next one is an animal that has been around since the dinosaurs were here, just like the scorpion that I showed you. And this is going to be the American alligator. We only have two alligators, groups of species of alligators in the world, and that's the American alligator and the Chinese alligator. Now, this one in here, okay, is about 2 years old. And you can see they have a very streamlined body. They also have pretty cool sense organs, which means they can feel things around. And that's part of their superpower, I think, because it's really cool. So if you look at their faces, okay, and they're going to have, and they have some pressure domes, which is those little dots that they have, look like they have like a black beard, and that's what they are. So they have it around here. They actually have it inside their mouth. Okay. Now, this guy here, since it's open right now, I'm going to skip around a little bit. So I'm going to talk about the teeth. Okay. So they have pretty sharp teeth, about 70 of them. Now, what's cool about it is that they never ever have to go see a dentist. If they lose a tooth, they're actually going to get another one, and they can get up to almost 3,000 teeth in their lifetime. And they can be alive for a long time, and it's 75 years old. What is cool about them is that they also going to be always growing. So we get to a certain height and stop growing, they actually grow all their lives. Okay. Now, something else that they have is that they have what we call a built-in goggles. Okay. So they have eyelids like I do. They have one in the top, one in the bottom. Okay. But they also have something else that comes from the side, and that in there is a clear. Okay. So it's like, just like goggles when you go swimming in the pool, you use those for actually protecting eyes. Well, they have a built-in one of those. And those in there actually protect their eyes when they go into the bayous and rivers around here and get the mud and everything that's in there. It actually is going to protect them. Something else that's really cool too about it is, let's see. Can you see the back of his mouth? Oh, he's talking too. You can't, right? That's because they actually have a flap in there that they can pull it in and open and close. Okay. And so when they pick it up a prey outside of the water, they're going to go and then go inside of the water, and they can actually eat that prey without having to drink all that water. Like if I went and got a fish, right, and I went underwater to eat it, I would just get a lot of water, and then, well, that's why they have that adaptation in there. They also have their eyes are most of up going to be it's in the top of their head. And most of the time they're going to have their eyes and their nose actually sticking out of the water. And that's the only thing they have sticking out of the water. And they just stay there. They're not big hunters. They're kind of like opportunistic. So if anything, vibration, remember I talk about those, right? Vibration in the water, anything comes around, that's actually when they're going to go. So they kind of disguise themselves in there. Now this one here is a young one. So that's why it has those stripes. Well, actually, they always have the stripes, but that's why they are so distinctive. Because actually they go, like in the edge of the bayou or the river, and they go in, the grasses will grow, and so that can actually disguise them. So it's a type of camouflage that they have. Okay. Now, they are what we call cold-blooded. So that's ectothermic. That means they do not control their body temperature like we do. So they have, whatever temperature is around them, it's the temperature that they are, which works really well for them, because if they go in the water and it gets the temperature is very cold, they're actually going to slow down their metabolism. They don't need to eat the food because they're not keeping their body temperature always the same. And so they can stay submerged for several hours in there, and they're going to they can slow down their heartbeat so that it change it up, the flow of the blood inside, the way it goes through it, so they can go just to the critical areas and just leave it up, so it's not wasting all that energy that they have inside. So pretty cool, right? Now, something else that's really cool is their stomach. They have a very acidic. What is acidic? That means like it's very, it can burn you. Some acids can be so strong they can burn you. Some of them, like a lemon juice or vinegar, just tastes really bad, right? It makes really sour. Now, what their acid does is actually can dissolve anything that they eat. So it can dissolve bone inside their stomach, inside their bodies. Now, they cannot eat very well if the temperature goes below a certain degree. So they have to be warm to be able to actually eat and digest their food. That's the bad part about it. But they can go months without eating at all. So that's the good part about it. Something else that they have too is that some of their blood, it has like a building antibiotic. Okay, you know how we get sick, we got antibiotic to actually take it away, whatever it is, right? So it makes it better. They actually have that inside. So they can actually eat like really nasty food that's been sitting around for 2 weeks. They still can eat it, don't get sick from it. They can actually be underwater into the bayous around here. That's pretty nasty water, right? You don't want to get sick touching, so you always have to wash your hands if you touch that water. So they actually have built in there for actually to be able to survive, okay? Now, their eggs are actually temperature control if it's going to be a female or a male. What I mean by that, they make nests in the ground. Their nests are just like a bird's nest, but much wider. It's about 8 feet around, okay? The bottom eggs, okay? And then they have top eggs, and then they cover it up with whatever grasses and anything they can put it in there. So the ones that in the top are going to be males. The ones in the bottom is going to be female. So it's a little bit different temperature, not very much, but that makes it up if it's a male or female. Now, it's unlike any animals because some of them we're actually going, as soon as, say, a chicken lay an egg, it's already determined if it's going to be a male or female. For them, that's going to happen between the second and third week after they are in the nest. How many eggs they can have, these guys? Quite a few, okay? They can have 40, they can have 20, they can have 10, but most of them are not going to survive for 1 year. Maybe 2 survive that they hatch from it, okay, after they hatch, that's it. Now, what is pretty cool is because in the animal world, we saw the ball python actually takes care of the eggs, but as soon as they hatch, she leaves, right? Well, these guys in here, they stay, the mother stays with the babies after they hatch for about 2 years, okay, to protect them, to actually show them around and carry them with them to the water, okay? Now, some of them are going to be left behind because they're not ready to come out yet. And so she just, those ones stay there. They may survive, they may not. But because the mother stays with them for 2 years, it increases the chances of them survival. So you saw like they have acid in the stomach, right? They have the eyes that they have. They also have one other thing that is pretty cool, the nictitating membrane. They have something else too. They have what we call, it's a fancy word, it's the tympanum lucid, okay, which is a lens that they have inside that will make the light go in again. What I mean by that is like, okay, so I have my lens, right, my eyes. So it goes in the light, it hits the back of my eye, goes back out again, and then it goes away. Now for them, it actually goes, they have a lens right there, so it goes back in, so they get twice as much light as other animals. Something else that they have too is that they have the vertical pupil. You see how just a line, right? That's because it's really bright. We're outside. If it was at night, then that thing would just be completely covering the eyes because then they need what? They're nocturnal. Crepuscular actually come at dusk and dawn and at night. So those in there are going to be, for them to actually be able to see better. Okay? So now let me go and pass to Ms. Haley for the next.
All right, guys. The last animal we have for you today is this little cutie here. I hope there's not too much of a glare. This animal is called a flying squirrel. So do you think this animal flies like a bird? Does it have wings and flies through the treetops? No, this animal actually is a glider, but it is called a flying squirrel. It is a mammal, and it has a patagium on the sides. It's got these flaps of skin here on the sides that it stretches out. You can see in that picture, it stretches them out very far, and it will jump from tree to tree and they can actually glide over 300 feet. They can even turn 180 degrees while they're gliding because they use that long flat tail as a rudder. And so they can just change and shift directions mid-glide. So they like to hang out in the canopies of treetops. They will glide from tree to tree. And a lot of the squirrels that we see around here are the little ground squirrels. Those are different than these. They are all native here, though. This one in particular, this one is one of only 3 species that we have in North America. Most of the other squirrels live in Asia, and this is about as big as this one gets. So it's a little squirrel, and even though they're native to here, you don't see them a lot, and that's because they're a nocturnal animal. That means they're going to come out at night, and you can see those very large eyes are going to help her see at night. And they're not like the other squirrels you see around here. The other squirrels come out during the daytime, and they'll actually hibernate during the winter, but not this one. The flying squirrel is not going to hibernate. It's just going to kind of slow down just a little bit whenever it gets cooler outside, kind of like a brumation where it slows down a little bit. It doesn't eat quite as much, but it's not a hibernation like the other ground squirrels that we have around here. Now, there is a giant flying squirrel that lives in Asia, and this is bigger than a house cat. So it's a very large flying squirrel that can glide just like this flying squirrel. But most of the other ones, they do live in Asia in those areas over there. Now, since it is a rodent, it's going to have very sharp rodent teeth, like what you think a rat might have. And they use those teeth to help them eat different things. They are omnivores, once again, so they love to eat different kinds of seeds and nuts, and they'll eat fruits and veggies, and they'll even sometimes steal small bird eggs from nests, and they'll even eat carrion, which are dead things. So they have a wide variety of in their diet. And something that is very, very cool about these guys, which is their superpower, is that they glow under UV light. And this is actually kind of a recent discovery. If you take a UV light and shine it on the flying squirrel, it glows pink, which is really awesome. And it was actually an accident that scientists found this out. They were actually looking at different skins in a museum and found that the flying squirrel can actually glow under UV light. Now, they're not really 100% sure why they do this. They think it might be a type of communication. It might be a warning to other animals that might be able to pick up on that UV glow. They're just not 100% sure, but they are working on theories every day. Now, these animals know their way around the trees very well. There are some animals that have a magnetic sense as their superpower. Birds, pigeons in particular, they are known for their magnetic capabilities to be able to know their internal compass very well. But these animals actually just jump around from tree to tree. They like to find holes in trees and make that their home. So they'll find a hole or a cavity and they'll build a nest in there, and they pretty much just hunker down all day long until it's nighttime. They'll have their babies in there. They usually have about 2 to 6 babies twice a season. And then since they are mammals, those babies are going to be born very vulnerable, so they won't have their hair, they won't have their eyes open just yet, and they will have to get their milk from mom. She will take care of them until they are old enough to get out on their own and start practicing their gliding through the trees. All right, I will pass it back over to Miss Anna.
So you saw the animals we had today, right? Pretty cool. And you can see, like, how we can copy a lot of the things that they have for actually to make our life easier. Scorpions, you can use their venom to actually treat heart patients. You have the alligator, studying it up their antibodies, like so they can actually go in and survive. And that has a science called biomimicry. And what it does, what is the scientists studying that one, is actually looking at things in nature and how that can help us survive, how we can make our lives better. Like the night vision goggles, right? That what the python, right? The ball python have. We can actually the goggles that the alligator have. And even like some of the other things we have, like magnetic sense, you can have like a compass, right? That you can find your way around. Well, birds can do that without needing one of those. And also something else that's really cool too that we didn't really talk about it, and that is going to be your echolocation that bats or sonar that bats have, right? So they have that. They can make really loud sounds that we cannot hear because it's not the frequency you can hear with, but it can go in and hit something in front of them when they emit that sound, and it goes bounces back at them. But it's so good that actually can go in and it can tell if it's rounded, how big, whatever it is in front of them, if it's something that they can eat or it's something that's too big that they should just go ahead and fly away. Now, that's who uses that? We do. We use those in what? In airplanes, right? The sound, you can use it underwater like dolphins do. You can use it for submarines and things like that. So we use a lot of the things that we actually study about animals to actually make our life better. Okay. And that in there is actually called, now it's a new science called biomimicry. So we mimic other animals around. Now, if I had showed you and told you about like those superpowers, would you believe it? No, right? But they're there, and that's nature to you. It's all about survival. So whatever an animal adaptation that an animal needs, he's going to be able to survive where he lives. So if he needs to have the goggles because he actually lives around the water, they have the third membrane, the nictitating membrane to protect like the alligator. That's good, right? The same thing with the flying squirrel. If he needs the skin in there so they can actually be up in the tree so they can evade predators, so he can look down and see if anybody's around so he can come down, or if it's somebody's going to come up for them. It's pretty good, right? So it's all those things any adaptation animal have is also all about survival. Okay? Now, one more thing I want to talk about it is that we actually do programs. We're coming back again in the summer and for in June and July for doing programs just like we just did today, different ones. We also do monthly programs at two libraries, Harris County libraries, and those are going to be the Aldine and North Channel libraries. We do live programs that once a month for them. So we, anytime you want to ask anything, we're going to go in after the Q&A. We're going to give you an email so you can actually ask us any questions that you need. Afterwards, if you see anything outside that you have a question about it, you can just shoot us an email. So anyway, so let me go and we're going to start with the Q&A for
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Miss Anna and Miss Haley. That was really fun and amazing. We do have some questions and also some comments. But the first question is regarding the scorpions. How many eggs do they usually have?
Well, it's going to depend what kind of scorpion it is. Okay, because they like not all of them going to have the exactly same one. That one in there had about 40 eggs.
Wow.
So that's pretty good, right? That's a big mom in there.
That is.
To carry all those babies in the back in there.
Bless her.
So yeah. So it's really going to depend on what kind of species it is. What is a species? A species is a group of animals that actually can interbreed and have offsprings. So an emperor scorpion is a species. It's one separate one. And then you may have another species of scorpion. If they cannot interbreed, then they're completely separate. So that's what it is.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have another question. And the question is, how can you tell if an alligator is a boy or a girl?
Ooh, we cannot tell. They know each other, but we cannot tell just by looking.
Really?
Yeah, no. We have actually to take them to a vet or something, and then they can find out the X-ray. This one in here that I just showed you, I don't know. It could be either. But yes, no, we cannot tell if it is or not. Some animals, like they have external, but some of them is just like this one, like the snake that you saw, the scorpion. So we just don't know.
Wow. And Miss Anna, we also got some comments about how brave you are when you're handling those alligators.
Yeah, you have to handle a certain way because you saw those teeth, right? Now,
Yes.
what's even worse is actually the bite, because their bite, they have such strong jaws that can actually go straight through my bone and go straight through it and get out. So yes, you got to be very careful. Not only that, but actually can hang around, because after they close their mouth, some animals, they latch and they are not going open for quite a while again. So
Has that happened to you?
you gotta have training.
Has that happened to you?
Yeah, I had one alligator that actually like were trying to sun it because it was really cold, and it was cold blooded, right? So they actually have to get until they get warm. They actually have to get in a sunny spot. So I had that like in my lap in the sun, and it just went like this, and it was hanging there for about like 20 minutes. It never broke my skin, okay?
Oh,
But when it finally opened its mouth, because I couldn't open, and now like even my coworker couldn't open. So after you open its mouth, you actually could see, like the little hole, like the little dots from where the teeth was, and it went away. So it never broke my skin. But yeah, animals, like they're not, as I say with the scorpion, you gotta be careful.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you just don't know. Everybody has moods, so do animals too. So
Exactly. So this is kind of a question and a comment, but one of our participants was saying they spotted a reddish looking snake near the school playground. Just any idea what kind of snake that may have been?
Haley?
It would depend. There are a few snakes around this area that have red colors. We have corn snakes, kind of milk snakes, I'm sorry. They have red and black stripes, though. It could have been some kind of a banded snake, a water snake. It would really just depend on the snake. You would really have to get a good look at it to ID it properly.
Sure. Well, thank you. Another question was, are all the animals that we saw today nocturnal?
No.
No. Oh, no.
Go ahead.
The bearded dragon is a diurnal, so it's a daytime animal. So that one's going to come out during the day. The ball python is a nocturnal, and the flying squirrel is a nocturnal. And then Miss Anna, you want to talk about yours?
The alligator, you see them during the day. Their favorite time is actually going to be dusk and down, crepuscular. That's what we call those. Okay, and also nocturnal. You can tell a lot by how they look. The eyes. If it has cats, have the vertical pupil, that it's going to be a sign for me that they actually going to be needing that where there's very little light around them. So you can take your clues from it. Like Miss Haley had the flying squirrel, right? They had those big eyes. That's a good sign that then is going to be a nocturnal animal. So.
Thank you. And one last question. What other animals have superpowers? Can you name a few?
Too many. Bats, that I say, dolphins, really, ants. A little ant can carry something that's about 100 times its weight.
Horned toads, actually, we have them in Texas, and they can actually squirt blood out of their eyes. That's a very cool defense that they have. So if a predator is coming after them, they have a little sac under their eyelids, and it fills up and it gorges with blood, and then they can actually shoot it out at a predator that is trying to eat
Oh my
them.
goodness.
Yes. Very cool to see it in action.
Yeah. See, spiders, like Spider-Man,
Sounds like
right?
something out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
We actually, a couple more questions came in, actually. Why is the flying squirrel pink when it glows? Do we know?
They do not know. They've tried to figure that out, and it's only been a couple of years since they made the discovery, and they found out that opossums, another North American marsupial that lives here, and the flying squirrels just glow under UV light. They're not sure. They think it could be communication maybe between the squirrels or maybe as a warning to a predator that might be able to pick up some of that UV light at night. They're just not sure, but it's cool.
And that's
Very
the same.
beautiful.
That's the same light that like the scorpion.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's exactly the same. So when scorpions are blue, they are pink. Like it just depends what we just don't know exactly why.
Thank you. And then one last, are any of the animals released to the wild after they get to be a certain size? I guess your animals.
The ones that we have today, the only one that we have that is going to be released is going to be the alligator. We actually get them from Brazos Bend State Park. We have a permit to be able to do that. And we keep them for about 2 years. Now, this one here is one that either it was left behind when the mother moved out for the rest of them, or it could have been that the mother died or something, and they all had, the park ranger went there and picked up the nest. That's the two reasons, basically, where we get them. And so we keep them for about 2 years, and then we release back into the park where they were. And that's to increase their chance of survival. Remember I said, like, the mother is one of the few that the mother actually stays with the babies for 2 years, protecting them. Because, like in nature, other alligators are going to be eating them too. So, like at this stage, although they're carnivores, that means they are, in that definition, they are predators, but they actually prey because the size that they are, they're small. So they can have birds of prey, other snakes, and other alligators. So
Sure.
just to increase their chances.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about Precinct 1 environmental education programs, how folks can learn more and participate.
Okay. We do programs, like as like we do like in the libraries, but we also do in schools. We can actually do programs at schools. We do in community centers, and every time we come, we have quite a few different animals. So every time we do a program, we actually bring different animals. So it's not always the same. The slide that you have right there, you can see my name. I'm like in the Alexander Dusen. Okay. And then you have Miss Haley. She's actually in the Challenger 7 in there. That's our emails. And so if you have any questions, or like you said, the reddish looking snake, right? If you can take a picture of something and you can actually send it to us, we try to identify and actually answer your question if you have one about something like that, or just about anything that you see outside. Okay. We also have something else too. We actually have a YouTube channel. And that's, like if you look at in this one, you can go in and just Google Commissioner Rodney Ellis. That's who we work for in the thing. And then Commissioner Precinct 1. And then you go into the YouTube, and then you can go into the playlist, and you can actually see Miss Haley right there in the bottom with the chinchilla. Okay. And we have quite a few videos in there. They're very short. Some of them can be like 2 minutes, and some of them like 15 minutes. It depends if they have a craft or not, but we can do programs over those in there. So we do quite a bit in a year, in normal year, not this year, but like in normal years, we actually, like in between both sides, we serve about 30,000 children a year.
Awesome. And what about, one of our participants is asking about virtual visits. How can those be scheduled, like today's?
Like today. Okay, we do, like you can send it in because we do have some programs in a weekly basis that we can actually go in and, and actually send the information, the link, so they can actually participate. We have different programs depending on kind of age they are. Like, like for the Aldine, the libraries, those are both called polywog programs, so the 3 to 5, but we get other older kids there as well. So that's something else that they can look it up, like in both the website and y'all's website to participate in those programs. Those programs are a little bit different than the one we just had today, because we actually not only have the animals, we actually have a craft, or we read a book or something, like activity. And so we do something else because it's the little ones. But they're all fun. Right. But just send us email and say, like you are interested, and then we can see if it's a school that you go that we can go. We can actually try to see about booking programs for them virtually. So.
And do you have a volunteer program? Specifically, someone asked about teen volunteers.
We do have a service learning program, but that's usually through schools. Okay. So we don't have one that you can just come in and participate, but we do have special events twice a year. This year, we're not going to have, it's Earth Day, which is next month in April, but we do have in Fish Fest, which is an event in the fall, that you can actually go and get trained to actually help the other kids and then go fishing over there in the pond and teach them how to fish. So yes, we do have some. Just contact either one of us, any of this, and you can actually go and direct to each program we can participate on.
Very neat. Well, thank you, Miss Anna and Miss Haley again. This was wonderful. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. And remember to visit hcpl.net/virtual programs to see all of our other program offerings that we have in store for this week for spring break and beyond. Thank you again.
Thank you.